Quincy. It was nice to see many of you via Zoom during the height of the pandemic, but it's nice to be here for real in this glorious space on this beautiful Sunday morning. There's a flame in the darkness, burning deep within our hearts, in the love that grows between us. This is where the journey starts. There is hope in the stillness. There is solace in our friends and in the love that grows between us. This is where the isolation ends. Come full circle in a moment. Hold no shame in what you feel. This old world will keep on turning, and our broken hearts will heal. When the rain falls around you like your solitary tear, in the love that flows between us, know that thunder holds no fear. In the struggle you hold sacred, when the arrows pierce you through, in the love that flows between us, may your courage be renewed. There is music in each silence. There is promise in each day, and in the love that holds between us, may we always find our way. Come full circle in a moment. Hold no shame in what you feel. This old world will keep on turning, and our broken hearts will heal. There's a flame in the darkness, burning deep within our hearts, in the love that flows between us. This is where the journey starts. There is hope in the stillness. There is solace in our friends and in the love that grows between us. The sacred journey never ends. Yes, in the love that holds between us, sacred journey.
Thank you so much, Joe, and welcome here. And welcome to everyone this morning. How lucky are we? Hey, even though it's daylight saving, even though we've sprung forward, this is a good way to spring, right? Welcome here to United First Parish Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, welcome to our Unitarian Universalist spiritual community. We gather today on the traditional lands of the Neponset Band of the Massachusetts tribe, a people who have lived here for generations and who live here now. Whether you are from the Quincy area or far away, welcome this morning. Whether you are joining us in person or via live stream, hello live stream friends, welcome. Whether this has been your faith community for decades or if this is your first time here, welcome. And we want to give a special welcome to anyone who may be joining us for the first time this morning or even the second time. So if this is your first or second time here with us, we invite you to raise your hand so that our ushers may offer you a gift of welcome. Welcome. Welcome to you both. We're glad you're here, and we hope you and everyone else join us for social hour in the parish hall behind me following the service. My name is Michaela Hoffman. I use they, them pronouns, and we have got a rock star worship team this morning. We've got David Downs as our greeter this morning, and Daphne Souvenir and Bill Westland are our ushers. Our live stream team is Jordan Waterworth flying solo, but is so awesome. And I am so pleased to introduce Joe Jencks as our visiting preacher and musician today. And let me share with you a little bit about Joe. Joe Jencks is a 25-year veteran of the international folk circuit, an award-winning songwriter and celebrated vocalist based in Chicago. He penned several #1 folk songs, I Believe It, yes, and is a co-founder of the harmony trio Brother Son. He's played in a wide variety of venues, from large-scale folk festivals to the Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall. Joe's style combines musical beauty, social consciousness, and spiritual exploration. We are so excited to have you joining us. I think for the 10th time, is that where thereabouts? In pandemic, not in pandemic, and now he's back, and we are so happy to welcome you back.
Thank you.
United First Parish Church strives to be a welcoming community to people of all ages and abilities. In the back of the sanctuary, near where our ushers are standing, you'll find hearing assistance headsets, large print hymnals, as well as children's books, busy bags, coloring for anyone to bring back to your seats. And we also have handicapped accessible bathrooms on our lower level with elevator access at the front of the sanctuary. And for the folks joining us online, we'll be posting hymn lyrics and words to unison readings in the chat as we go along. And as we prepare for this heartful worship this morning, let us take a deep breath together, feeling the spirit of life and love that moves within, between, and beyond us all. And I will invite Pat Artis to share a reading. Hi, Pat. As we light our chalice, symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith.
We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for friendship and vulnerability, in celebration of the life we share together. In Joe's words, it's an illusion we carry with us as we wade on through the waters of our lives, that we must be strong and hold our own here, but a helping hand will save us by and by. I know alone that I will falter, but with a good friend near me, I will carry on.
Please rise as you are willing and able, and join us in reading our congregation's covenant. The words are found in your order of service. As a free fellowship of this historic church, we unite to lift our hearts and open our minds to a larger reality, to accept, support, and encourage one another, to seek the wisdom in all religions, to cherish and sustain the web of life, and to strive for justice, compassion, and peace. On Sundays, we take time to greet one another by raising our hands, waving to one another, holding hearts over hands. So at this time, I invite you to greet one another in the spirit of fellowship and peace.
Please feel free to be seated if you'd like. My instrument is still rebelling from the flight from Chicago. The rest of me is rebelling from losing that hour of sleep last night. So between the two of us, it'll be an interesting morning. But wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Sing it with me. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who are these children dressed in red? God's gonna trouble the water. Must be the ones that pose their sled. God's gonna trouble the water. I said wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who are these children dressed in white? God's gonna trouble the water. They must be the children of the Israelites. God's gonna trouble the water. I said wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who are these children dressed in blue? God's gonna trouble the water. They must be the ones that's coming on through. God's gonna trouble the water. I said wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who are these children dressed in black? God's gonna trouble the water. They must be the ones never turning back. God's gonna trouble the water. Said wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I said, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I said, God's gonna trouble the water. I said, God's gonna trouble the water. I said, God's gonna trouble the water.
We just went to church, literally and musically. I would like to invite up all of our young people, parents, Spirit Circle teachers to come sit right in this pew right over here in front of Joe for our message for all ages.
It's all about adaptability. And hello to everybody joining us online this morning. I hope that you are also well and enjoying whatever the Sunday morning is bringing you, wherever you happen to be joining us from. We know some of you are regularly in attendance here pre-pandemic, and some of you have moved to various places all over. So thanks for being with us. And greetings to all of you. I'm Joe. So nice to be with you this morning. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about what it means to feel a sense of belonging. There is this notion in the world of radical hospitality. Do you know what hospitality is? If I use the word hospitality, what does that mean to you? Any thoughts? Hospitality? Hosting? Yeah. To create a welcome space for other people. And we sometimes get used to the idea, particularly I think when we're younger, that it's the job of other people around us to create that welcoming space. And in truth, all of us have the opportunity to participate in creating a welcoming space, a space where everybody feels like they belong. And I had the privilege of working with some students in East Wenatchee High School in Washington State many years ago who were struggling with their sense of belonging. Many of them were recent immigrants to the United States. Their parents worked in the fruit industry in Washington State, and they were trying to find their way, some of them in a new school, many of them dealing with a new language for them. And my opportunity with them was to write music with them that would reflect their experience. And I asked them what they wanted to write about, and I got, flowers and girls and boys and pizza and all kinds of suggestions about what we might write, ice cream, what we might write songs about. And finally, one young woman, Perla, says, "A dónde pertenezco?" And I don't really speak a lot of Spanish. I know it from songs that I sing and a few phrases here and there from a month in Guatemala attempting to learn Spanish. But I looked at her teacher and he said, "Where do I belong? A dónde pertenezco? Where is my place? To where do I pertain?" Literally, but where do I belong is a better poetic expression. And I said, yeah, let's write about that. Tell me more, Perla. Tell me what it means to have some sense of not knowing where you belong. And as this song unfolded, I realized that it was very much about Perla and her classmates and their experience. But each one of us, particularly in our youth, have had the experience of feeling disenfranchised, of feeling on the outside, of feeling like the society or our family or the structures around us don't understand who we are, don't witness us. And I realized that Perla, true to her name, Pearl, had found a pearl of wisdom in this one phrase that continues to speak to me, and I hope that it speaks to you. Where do I belong? ¿A dónde pertenezco? Where do I come from? ¿De dónde vengo? Where will I go from here? ¿Para dónde iré de aquí? De aquí. I don't have anywhere to stay. No tengo donde quedarme. Going from town to town, yendo a pueblo. But who have we left behind? ¿A quienes hemos dejado atrás? Dejado atrás. We are looking for communities, buscando comunidades with better opportunities, con mejores oportunidades. But who have we left behind? ¿A quienes hemos dejado atrás? Dejado atrás. You can sing it with me if you want. Where do I belong? Where do I belong? ¿A dónde pertenezco? ¿A dónde pertenezco? Where do I come from? Where do I come from? ¿De dónde vengo? ¿De dónde vengo? Where will I go from here? Where will I go from here? ¿Para dónde iré de aquí? De aquí. De aquí, de aquí, de aquí. So I invite you to think not only about where you belong, but how you might help someone else feel like they belong. Thank you so much. Because I can't play and read the words at the same time, we'll do this a cappella. Please join me as you go. As you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go, as you go, may joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go.
Through the sharing of our joys and sorrows, we create a space where we are deeply present with ourselves and one another. This is a time to briefly share the life milestones that lift your spirits in joy or hope, or the pains and losses that fill you with heartache. If you have a joy or sorrow to share this morning, please come forward here and share your name. You can speak from this microphone, and alternatively, you can raise your hand and we will get you a microphone where you are seated. As we begin our sharing, we light a candle of joy, knowing that a joy shared is a joy magnified. And we also light a candle of sorrow, knowing that a sorrow shared is a sorrow diminished. Let us open our hearts to one another. As we end our sharing, we light a final candle representing all the joys and sorrows we hold silently in our hearts. In our deep sharing, in our vulnerability, and in our holding, let us take a deep breath together. Indeed, there is a love holding us all. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. May we rest in this love. And may the light of these candles and the compassion of this community remind us that wherever we are on our journeys, we are each worthy of love, and we are each able to love.
We speak some intentions. Most of us hold more of them in our hearts. And so for all of those intentions that go unspoken, those deep yearnings, those points of sadness that seem like we're in a deadlock with something that has no solution, those joys that bring us so much delight, and yet we fear to share in the face of other people's suffering, lest they think we are somehow diminishing their experiences. Let us hold all of these secret joys and sorrows for a moment in silence. There's never a shortage of interesting things when you're looking for quotes that come up as being attributed to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Because he lived so recently, most of what is attributed to him is actually written or spoken by him, which is great. This in particular grabs me very deeply in the current climate of our nation and of the world. Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. As if I were writing an answer to Wade in the Water, this next song downloaded for me as I was hiking through the mountains in North Carolina and feeling the spirit of that place. It's called Where Are You, Moses? Where are you, Moses? Where are you now? Come down from that mountain, Moses. Lead your children home. Sing it if you like. Where are you? Where are you, Moses? Where are you now? Where are you now? Come down from that mountain. Come down from that mountain, Moses. Lead your children home. People all are hungry, no food for them to eat. Wandering through this desert, Lord, no shoes upon their feet. So tell me now, where are you, Moses? Where are you now? Come down from that mountain, Moses, lead your children home. Said when we left Egypt, you and God had worked it out to lead us to the promised land. You said there was no doubt. So tell me now, where are you, Moses? Where are you now? Come down from that mountain. Come down from that mountain, Moses. Lead your children home. People carve their idols to worship and to keep. Greed and lust and hatred, Lord, they dig their graves so deep. So tell me now, where are you, Moses? Where are you now? Come down from that mountain, Moses. Lead your children home. Many tribes and nations. Here's where the time zone shift and losing an hour of sleep is catching me. I lost 2 hours yesterday. Many tribes and nations. Each one has an answer, Lord, and each one thinks they're right. So tell me now, where are you, Moses? Where are you now? Come down from that mountain, Moses. Lead your children home. So tell me now, where are you, Moses? Where are you now? Come down from that mountain, Moses. Lead your children home. Come down from that mountain, Moses, lead your children home. Come down from that mountain, Moses, and lead your children home. Many tribes and nations searching for the light. Each one has an answer, Lord, and each one thinks they're right. That's the line. Thank you. These words from Sojourner Truth. Most of you are familiar with Sojourner Truth, an extraordinary American, a profound woman. This is from a speech that she gave. These are excerpts. She was speaking about women's rights and women's suffrage. That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as any man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off into slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Then that little man in black over there, he says women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together here ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they is asking to do it, and men better let them. Among the many privileges in my life as a songwriter, as I mentioned earlier in our Time for All Ages, is occasionally going into schools and working with young people. And I have a sense of how to do that because I had a phenomenal music teacher, kindergarten, first, second grade, Dorothy Page Turner, a phenomenal educator and music educator, humanitarian, civil rights activist. Dorothy grew up in rural Arkansas, the first in her family to go to college. And in the early 60s, she looked around at what she might do to contribute to the world and to the civil rights movement. And she decided that she was going to be a music teacher, that she would empower generations of young people with the tools that they needed to use music as a tool of transformation in the world, as a tool of healing, as a vehicle for more adequate, more clarity in our communication. I think it's phenomenal that she decided as an activist that the most effective path for her was to be an elementary school music teacher. And I benefited from that. I met her on my very first day of kindergarten, and she was so joyful. And in her late 70s, she is still every bit as joyful after having spent a lifetime pushing the boundaries on women's rights, on civil rights, and being an advocate for young people. Dorothy was an extraordinary influence, and so I carry that with me when I get around young people. I just try and channel my inner Dorothy and remember how welcoming she was to me and how safe she made elementary school when I was terrified to go there. Music class was right at the top of the day, and that just put me at ease. I was like, all right, well, this whole school thing is going to be all right, you know. She was something special, and she still is. And so I got one of these phone calls, jump forward, 4 decades plus, 4.5 decades, and I get a phone call that is like every songwriter's dream, within reason, but not the sort of thing you actually hear. Somebody called me, told me that they had procured a sizable grant, and they wondered if I would be willing to go into an elementary school in Waukegan, Illinois, and write songs with 4th and 5th graders focusing on social justice heroes in U.S. history. And I was like, all right, one of my friends is punking me. Like, this is not a thing that happens right now during the Trump administration, that I get grant money to go radicalize an elementary school through music, but sure enough, it was legit, and they had been doing a little bit of research, some more than others, but I walked into Miss May's classroom, very dignified, older school, Southern woman, also who came north to teach, not unlike my music teacher when I was growing up. And Miss May had a beautiful portrait on the wall, a photograph, old tintype photograph of Dr. George Washington Carver. I try and let the young people have a hand in what we're writing about and how we get there, but I realized I've never heard a song about George Washington Carver, and we need one. And so I very gently nudged, and it was clear that, I was only adding fuel to the fire, that Miss May had been like, hey, look at this guy on the wall, like the 4 foot by 3 foot picture the students were seeing every day. And there was a quote that one of the students found that became a bit of a linchpin. You know, when we were growing up, we did not have a searchable tablet sitting on our desk. We had to actually get up and go down the hall or downstairs to the library. Whole classroom full of fourth graders all have a tablet, fifth graders in this case, on their desk. So any question that comes up, they're like, okay, well, the internet says this, you know. That was a new one for me, but one of the students found a quote: "Education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom." And she said, Mr. Jencks, is there any way we could use this in a song? I said, absolutely and verbatim. That's great. Back in 1864, Diamond Grove, Missouri, a boy was born in slavery. He would change the world. Very first African-American to enroll at Iowa State. He earned a bachelor and a master's degree. He really changed his fate. Peanut Man, sweet potato man, cared about people, cared about the land. Loved to work with plants and make things grow. Dr. George Washington Carver, he was a good man to know. He became a scientist, a botanist profound. Loved to solve big mysteries of what grew in the ground. Sweet potato rubber, candy, soap, and glue. A professor at Tuskegee, man whose heart was true. Peanut Man, sweet potato man, cared about people, cared about the land. Loved to work with plants and make things grow. Dr. George Washington Carver, he was a good man to know. When the farmers grew all cotton, nearly killed the soil flat, he told them to grow peanuts to put the nitrogen back. Education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. Pay attention to the things you learn. Someday you're gonna need them. Peanut Man, sweet potato man, cared about people, cared about the land. Loved to work with plants, make things grow. Dr. George Washington Carver, he was a good man to know. Thank you. I would just say that if you think it's easy to work the scientific notion of nitrogen replacement in the soil into a folk song, you'd be mistaken. Because this is one of the most consequential things that Dr. Carver did in his lifetime, was to help people understand the relationship of plants that lift things out of the soil and plants that put things back in the soil. And people think, oh, the guy who invented peanut butter, thanks for playing. The Mayans were eating peanut butter 2,000 years ago. But he did popularize peanut butter. But for every patent that he had for something he had invented with the peanut, he had 2 patents for something he invented with the sweet potato, which he considered nature's miracle plant. And so I lift that up only to say that it's an interesting entry point into the brief conversation that I want to have, which is about what diversity means in our lives as a pragmatic thing. I am a part of communities that work so hard to create safe spaces and engineer diversity I don't mean that in an unkind way, but to sort of create very intentionally certain kinds of diversity And I'm a part of other communities where that diversity naturally occurs. I'm a part of the labor movement. I was at the Labor Notes Conference in June in Chicago, 4,500 fired up activists in the labor movement, more than half of whom were people of color. There was no intentional engineering of a diverse environment. It's the shape of the working class in this country. And it was such an interesting thing for me to hold in juxtaposition the different communities I'm a part of in the arts or through the Unitarian world with these communities I'm a part of in labor, and ask myself, where did that come from in my life? How were notions of racism in the world that existed deconstructed by my teachers and by my family for me so that I entered the world differently than many people do, although I didn't know it at the time? I talked about Dorothy Page Turner, an extraordinary influence in my life. When I was in 8th grade, she founded the Black Theater Ensemble in my hometown, working out of the New American Theater in Rockford, Illinois. And she approached my mother and asked her permission to invite me to be a part of the ensemble. And then she asked me if I'd like to be a part of it. And I said, sure. I mean, I was just, when I was an 8th grader headed into high school, any opportunity to stand on a stage and sing and speak and be a part of telling stories in this visceral way was something I wanted. Like, I leapt first and asked questions later. That was my motto as a young performer, say yes to everything. And it turned out I was the only Caucasian member of the Black Theater Ensemble. And that didn't seem at all strange to me. I was just like, hey, let's tell the story. What do you need me to do? And then we got into things where Dorothy had written this amazing script, lifting the words of Sojourner Truth. The first time I heard that, I was 14 years old in 8th grade. And I hear one of the actors in our company reading this and then memorizing it and delivering it as oratory in the way that Sojourner Truth would have. And that bit about where did your Christ come from? He came from God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with it. What a great notion for a 14-year-old boy in this country to just absorb and go, well, they're not saying that at my church. Dorothy was just radicalizing all of us in the most beautiful ways, intergenerational cast. She so intentionally figured out who she wanted in the ensemble to build a troupe of activists in our hometown, to go to schools and libraries and churches of all different stripes and deliver this show called Freedom Journey, celebrating the literary works of Black writers and the lived experience of Black Americans. And there was a rehearsal in which we were running a scene for the first time in earnest where my job was to be a slave auctioneer. And I had to stand up and be, like truly an auctioneer, bid 'em in, and do the whole thing. And it was excruciating. It was excruciating for me at that point, having built such a deep relationship already with these other performers. And you got to understand theater people. We know we only have a finite amount of time, so we go deep fast. And these relationships were there, and then there was this process of quantifying and turning into property the people who were my friends. And it was for me excruciating. It was for them excruciating. But it was a piece of the story that needed to be told in my hometown in the 1980s. And after one rehearsal, I just sat on the edge of the stage and I began to weep just a little bit. And Dorothy came over, this beautiful woman I had known since I was a kindergartner, one of the most trusted adults in my life, and she placed her hand over my heart, right on my chest, and another hand on my shoulder. And she said to me, "No one here is confused about who you are. We have asked you to do a difficult thing so that we can tell a story that must be told. But no one here is confused about who you are." Waterworks, And the cast came over one by one and started placing their hands on my shoulder, on my head, on my person somewhere, and just this biblical laying of hands and healing and moment of communion as we all acknowledged the insanity of what we were doing as actors, of what we were trying to express so that other people might understand the insanity of it. It would never have occurred to me to utter a racist comment in my life. My father was a Korean War veteran who served in one of the first infantry battalions that was fully integrated racially, and he was proud of it his entire life. Absolutely proud of it. The only time I ever heard him disinvite someone from our home, I was probably 6 years old, and there was a man, I don't know who he was, I don't know where he came from, I don't know why he was in our house, but he was talking smack about people of color. And my dad just said, "We don't talk like that around here." And he kept going. And my dad said, "I'm not sure you heard me. We don't talk like that around here." And then my dad said, "I think it's time for you to leave." And he said, well, you know. My dad just, in his master sergeant from the Korean War infantry, said, "I think it's time for you to leave now." He didn't raise his voice, but the commanding power of that utterance rings still in my ears at 51 years old. His stark defense of other people within our home. My parents hosted foreign exchange students from all over the world. As I said, I'm the youngest of 7 children. Even though my dad had a decent enough job, it doesn't stretch very far when you're feeding 9 people and various and sundry strays that are always coming in. There was always room for another plate at our dinner table, or 2 or 3. There were frequently people spending the night. Sometimes my mom would take in a cousin for most of a year if one of the families was having a hard time, and she just knew that that particular cousin needed the environment of other cousins. There was always an open door to anyone. So for my father to disinvite someone from our house, even if I didn't understand why, I got that that was a big deal. It was not until I was older that he spoke more about his pride in serving in the military and the time that he did. But I took for granted that everybody had students from India on the weekend helping them learn how to cook Indian food, or students from Spain or Turkey or Iraq or Iran teaching them to play backgammon, students from Japan teaching us about aspects of their culture. I just assumed that this was how everybody lived. I assumed everybody had the naturally integrated experiences that I had, that my parents created because they wanted us to be global citizens. An extraordinary thing to grow up with all of that. So by the time I was in high school and working with the Black Theater Ensemble, none of this seemed at all unusual to me. And what a profound gift to be among the earlier generations in this country, to grow up where things that seemed difficult for my parents' or grandparents' generation were just naturalized for me. This is how the world is. It is full of all kinds of people of all different shapes and sizes and colors and religions and traditions. And we get to be a part of it with them. We get to know people and invite them into our home. And this comes to mind for me because a Unitarian minister friend of mine was called to a post in Canada. And because she's younger and queer, I think their hope was that she would bring diversity to the congregation. And at some point, the board confronted her after her first year that she had not done enough to diversify the congregation. And she turned around, risking her job, and said, "How many times in the last year has someone who was queer or a person of color sat at your kitchen table?" If the answer is that hasn't happened in the last year, then you got to figure out how to diversify your life. And when people figure out that you are an ally, you are a friend, you are a human being who sees a human being first. First and foremost, you see another human being. You don't see an ism, you don't see the color of their skin, you don't see their gender identity. You just see a human being in front of you and you interact with that human being. Then natural friendships emerge, and diversity expresses itself as a natural extension of the love and affection and respect that people feel for each other. That's what she told her congregation. I thought that was pretty courageous. I happened to be singing on that Sunday when she was preaching, and I thought, that's true. And then I thought back on my childhood, and I thought back on my parents, and I thought back on their notion of being hospitable to all people proactively. I was working security at the Kerrville Folk Festival one year. I didn't have the money to go, even though I had been a performer there previously. So I got a gig working theater security. And Vern Crawford, a lovely, lovely man, who's about that tall, has a beard that's about that long, a little felt hat, little steel rimmed glasses. I refer to him as a Texas leprechaun. And he says, "Now, Joe, now don't think of yourself as festival security. Think of yourself as proactive hospitality." And I thought, what would happen in our world if we transformed the way that we think about law enforcement to proactive hospitality? What would happen if we thought of the way that we relate to education and other environments, other institutions? What would happen if we each took a little piece of that commission from Vern Crawford, my Texas leprechaun, and viewed ourselves as being responsible for proactive hospitality? How many problems could be solved rather than involving the criminal justice system or the youth detention system or, the dangerous situations that are literally killing people in this country? How many could be avoided if everybody in that system viewed their first and primary role as proactive hospitality? This is a song that I wrote on the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, because I started thinking about the fact that he was a boy once upon a time. We forget that. We see all these images of King and we go, oh, well, King. We forget that he was a kid, and he was a kid that committed himself to challenging racism as he experienced it when he was 6, because up to that time he lived in a pretty sheltered community. And his dad was a minister, and he grew up in the rectory of the church that his dad was ministering, the parsonage, and he was friends with a couple of boys across the street. Their parents were butchers. They happened to be a white family, but it didn't really matter to Martin. It was just his neighborhood, his people, his playmates. And then the older of these two boys entered first grade, as did Martin, but they went to different schools. And then that boy didn't want to be friends with Martin anymore because he was being taught through a white public school a very institutionalized form of racism. And it broke Martin's heart so deeply that he carried that pain with him the rest of his life. And at 6 years old, he dedicated himself to the notion of challenging all things in society that make what he experienced at 6 years old a normal and acceptable experience. Back to this line about the work of justice is to push back against anything that stands in the way of love. That's what King dedicated himself to, and that's why I chose that quote, because he had that notion in his head when he was 6. Maybe not in quite those words, but the emotion of it. January 15, 1929, born in the city of Atlanta. Just another preacher's kid singing in the choir. This kid had a vision, reach for something higher. 6 years old when segregation put him in his place. Started school and lost his childhood friends, questioning the order of society and faith. Many deeper truths which one cannot escape are turned. Oh, Martin Luther King, keep holding on to what you know is true. Living out the teachings, continuing to sing hearts in a Martin Luther King. Booker T. Washington High School was the place he began to raise his voice on poverty and race. Headed off to Morehouse, the 15-year-old sage, chasing dreams and dignity beyond his youthful age. Our turn, oh Martin Luther King, keep speaking up for what you know is true. Living out the teachings, continuing to sing hearts in a Martin Luther King. Studying the sacred word challenged him to grow. He headed for Montgomery toward a fate he could not know. City buses, boycotts, peaceful marches in the street. A bomb thrown through a window, crown of thorns laid at his feet. Albany to Birmingham, St. Augustine to Selma, Boston, New York City, Chicago and D.C., carrying the burden and the banner of equality till 1968, April 4th, Memphis, Tennessee. Our turn, oh Martin Luther King, we will speak for what we know is true. Living out your teachings, continuing to sing hearts in a Martin Luther King. Our turn, oh Martin Luther King, we will speak for what we know is true. Living out your teachings, continuing to sing hearts in a Martin Luther King. Living out your teachings, continuing to sing hearts in a Martin Luther King. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. So we're going to head into the offering, but I'm going to skip the offering hymn in the interest of time. It's a beautiful song. I am open, Holly near. You can find it on YouTube and many places online. I encourage you to look it up.
We drink from wells we did not dig, and we worship in a sanctuary we did not build. As a voluntary association, our church is sustained through the gifts of the members and friends of our congregation. If this is your first time worshiping with us, we ask that you please let the offering plate pass you by. Your gift to us is your presence here. We're really grateful for you. You can give online by going to ufpc.org and clicking on the donate button. And I'll invite the ushers forward to receive our offering plates, and know that anything that you give this morning will be joyfully received. Here at United First Parish Church, we gather in many ways to nourish the spirit and to nourish the community. You can find some information and announcements about some of our upcoming events in your order of service, and I'll just highlight a couple super briefly. There's going to be another UFPC Path to Membership class next Sunday, March 19th from 12:15 to 2. So if you're interested in that, there will be child care available, and you're welcome to email Reverend Rebecca about that. And I will put another plug in for March 25th, our Spring Fling fundraiser. I always have trouble saying Spring Fling fundraiser. And we still need silent auction items. So during coffee hour, feel free, there's a couple of sign-up sheets. You can write something if you feel like offering to the silent auction, or you can contact Kim, who's in the back, about that. And I will invite us all, as we are willing and able, to rise and place a hand over your hearts. You are invited to turn towards the center aisle and join me in singing our chalice extinguishing words as we offer one another a mutual benediction. And we will sing this a cappella all together. Carry the flame
of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
And I'll invite Joe to lead us in our unison benediction.
These closing words from Rabindranath Tagore, the Bard of Bengal. Look him up online too. I won't go deep into his history, but extraordinary. Where the mind is without fear, please read these with me if you'd like. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms toward perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Thank you so much for quoting my lyrics in the chalice opening. We should close with that song. Please remain standing if you want to sing with and get some good breath support. If your legs are tired and you want to have a seat, you're welcome to do that too. Come with me. Somebody asked me as a songwriter how I would interpret the notion Unitarian gospel. I said, well, I think I got you covered there. I feel the current raging around me, trying to summon up my strength once more. I am weary on this journey, afraid I will not reach that distant shore. I cry for help, feel like I'm sinking. There is no one near me I can see, but there you are in the water with me. Take my hand and guide me graciously. Will you come with me on this journey? Every breath we take, keep reaching for the dawn. I know alone I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. That's your part next time around. There is a kindness in your smile and a gentleness within your speech. You reassure me, your love surrounds me. I know safety is at last within my reach. Will you come with me? Will you come with me on this journey? On this journey with every breath. With every breath we take, keep reaching for the dawn. I know alone I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. It's an illusion we carry with us as we wade on through the waters of our lives. We must be strong and hold our own here, but a helping hand will save us by and by. Will you come with me on this journey? On this journey. Every breath we take, keep reaching for the dawn. I know alone I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. I know alone I will falter. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. With a good friend near me, I will carry on. Beloved, our worship is ended, but our service continues. Go in peace.